Callum's related to the that I'm recording that chap over there is live.
I'm sorry, apparently we're not ready yet. Technical problems, is that right? So chat amongst yourselves, we're going as soon as we can. All right. You can turn to the person on your right or left and say hello, because they'll be friendly, okay? Because they got in. The hostile ones are outside, so we don't want to shake hands with them, okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Amy gave me a mic, you picked that up. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Be behind again.
Pull this back. You getting all right? Okay. Anyway, I went to do a charge class last week. People want to pay me, they can donate. On the stage, yeah, on the stage. Yeah, behind the microphone. But you need to speak to a microphone, so either the handheld ones or the. Yeah.
Microphone test. Blah blah blah. Microphone.
You can, as long as he's got one of the microphones. Otherwise, yeah. Do you want to test all the microphones? I don't want to make sure the audio levels are about the same volume. Tommy Robinson, is it Ogden? I think it was named Cold Engineer Saga. Yes, I keep always yeah. And the woman that founded the Brexit Party back in this woman who was long haired, and she's one of the founders of the Brexit Party. I don't know who the guy is.
to start. I'm looking to the cameraman. We can. Good, excellent. Well, welcome to you all. Thank you very much indeed for making your way here on a wet Friday. We're really pleased to see you. And I think today should be something, the start of something really important. And that's what we're hoping for, and I'm going to talk a bit about it. Before I do so, just a couple of announcements. Firstly, in the event of a fire or other disaster, you need to find a door to get out, and they're at the back, or down here, and down there, so you can find your way out. That's that side. The other side is, if you don't want to be filmed, okay, as you can see there are cameras around, if you don't want to be filmed by any chance, can I suggest you go and sit up, right up the back in the corner? If necessary, the stewards will help you get extra chairs so you sit in the back row. If you don't mind being filmed, that's fantastic, stay right where you are, you may well find yourself famous forever. Okay? But if you don't want to be, pleased go and sit right up in the back of that corner and ask the cameramen and women who are any not to do any filming up there. Okay, well I'm going to start. I'm the first one on. You've all got a programme in front of you. We need to try and get through this programme by 1 o'clock if we can. We started a few minutes late, so maybe we'll go over a little bit as well. But it's really good to have you here. We are here today to launch something called Hearts of Oak. You'll see that right here, Hearts of Oak, which is a new movement. Now the reason for this is that, as you will know, in the 3 years following the 2016 referendum, the British establishment, by which I mean the wider establishment, I mean Westminster and Whitehall, the judiciary, the senior levels of the police, the mainstream media, even the bench of bishops in the House of Lords, their masks slipped. And we all saw, indeed you could sit in Beijing or Buenos Aires, it doesn't matter, around the world you could see what you and I have known for a long time, that with some limited number of honourable exceptions, the establishment, the British establishment, is against the people. And they spent 3 years trying to block the Brexit that we had all voted for, and the British people said they wanted to. So as I say, you could say anywhere in the world, you could say the mother of parliaments, the foundation of democracy in London, here it was, and actually the elite, the establishment, were trying to block what the British people wanted to see. So at long last, the mask had slipped for the whole world to see. Everybody could see it, no matter where you were. The British establishment were not going to let the British people do get what they wanted to do. All over Europe, there have been populist movements and populist parties starting up. You've seen it from Sweden down to Spain, right the way across there have been populist movements and so on, but not here, not in the UK. I think there are two reasons for that. Firstly, Brexit itself muddied the water. Although Brexit perhaps could be seen as a populist issue, nonetheless, for non-populists who got themselves behind it, you think of people like Jacob Rees-Mogg and people like that. So it muddied the water. Nobody was quite clear what populism meant. And also, I think there was our electoral system called the first past the post system, which blocked any new movements and new parties getting going. People have started, you will know people have started new parties, but it takes a long time for them to build up and get going. So, setting up and getting going a populist, anti-establishment movement has been difficult. Until, I hope, today. Basically, it comes down to my colleague Peter McElvenna, who will be speaking later on myself. We had this idea that actually we need to try and do something different. We know on the populist side of politics, if I put it like that, on the populist side of our culture, there are a number of big hitters, of strong personalities who are busy doing their own thing. And three of them are sitting up here on my right on the programme. I'm not excluding Wally at the far end, but he's not a political animal at all, okay? He's not Wally will speak later. But we had three of them here, and we came up with the idea that you can't, if you've got big personalities who have clear views of what they want to do, you can't try and get them all together in a political party and constrain them by a straitjacket and the rest of it. The best thing to do is something quite different. Say, guys, you're doing a fantastic job. Let's loosely associate together in some sort of alliance, and whatever you're doing, do it more, and sometimes do it in connection with some others as well. And that's the thinking behind Hearts of Oak. We are not a political party. We are not a think tank that produces papers or anything. We're an alliance of activists who themselves are busy doing what they want to do and getting out and doing it. And what we're going to try and do is link them together, associate them together, and help them do whatever they're doing. We're not going to tell them what to do, they're already doing it. We're not going to tell them how to do it. We're going to say, whatever you're doing, we're going to try and work with you and help you by bringing other people on side. I've got my eyes on other people who I'd like to bring into the Alliance once we get going and so on, people who are already public figures. And maybe you've got suggestions of people who would like to join us as well. The principle is 1 + 1 = 3, or 2 + 2 = 4. We're better if we're in a rough alliance than if we're standing on our own. What issues do we are not a political party, so we do have values, and I'll talk about that in a moment, rough values that identify us and say where we stand. But what sort of things are we going to get into? I think we're going to get into those issues, which we're already into in some ways, those issues which are important to real, normal, ordinary people. Issues where there has been an injustice or a cover-up by the authorities and by the establishment, and issues necessarily where we're not allowed to talk about them. Political correctness or whatever makes it absolutely clear you can't talk about these issues. So our idea on this is we believe in free speech, we're going to battle for free speech, therefore we're going to talk about them. Nobody else may talk about them, but we're going to talk about them. I think we're going to start off after Carl's spoken us a bit about free speech and his particular angle on that. After that, you're going to hear from Tommy, and Tommy's going to talk about an issue which nobody is ever allowed to, but you know and I know. Parents and grandparents up and down the country are aching for somebody to take a lead on and speak up about, because it's a disgraceful. I'll leave that to Tommy to talk to about that later. But that's the sort of thing we are. We also believe that one of the fundamental issues we've had for our society is the rapid destruction of our culture and our heritage, and one of the main factors on that has been mass open-door immigration, and Catherine is going to be speaking about that later too. So, our values, what are our values? I think we'll find when we launch our website, we've got a detailed one up there. I think what I'd like to say, while we're not a political party, we are basically, we would say that we are one patriotic, okay? One patriotic. You need to be part of us, you need to be pro-Britain, okay? If you aren't pro-Britain, if you're anti-Britain, you're not part of us, that's the first thing. Secondly, we are not, under any circumstances, racist, okay? We are not, those that believe that sort of what is known as the ethno-nationalists and so on, they are not part of who we are. We are not. We absolutely refute any form of racism whatsoever. And lastly, while we tend to be very active, and we plan to be extremely active on our campaigns and so on, and that may involve all sorts of various activities and stunts and so on, we do not, under any circumstances, believe in violence or encouraging violence at all whatsoever. There will be other values as well, which will go up on our website, and maybe during the last part of this, but during the question and answer, we can talk more about that too. But that's where we are. That's who we are. Why have we launched here today on a Friday? Many people said you shouldn't launch in London, you should launch out where our supporters are. Supporters will tend to be out of London. Go and launch yourself in Huddersfield or Bury or somewhere like that, somewhere in the north or in the Midlands and so on. And go and do that, you get many more people turning up. We've deliberately chosen not to. We are here in the belly of the beast. We are surrounded by the establishment, the civil servants and the politicians, and we are not afraid. So we've booked this venue here, okay? We have invited the mainstream media to come if they wanted to. Like, as far as I know, we'll find out later, but I don't think they have to come. But we've done so quite deliberately, and we're grateful to you. Some of you have travelled a long way. I know some of you are up at 4 o'clock this morning to get a coach down to London to be here. We're really grateful. But it's a deliberate choice by us to say to everybody, we are not afraid, we are not ashamed, we are who we are, we believe in what we believe in free speech, so come on, take us on. And here we are, right in the middle, it's all surrounding us right here. And we've chosen a weekday as well, so if the media want to be here, they can do. And I'm really grateful to you, those of you that made the sacrifices to be here today. I think that's probably enough from me for now. I'll have more to say later as we go on. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to introduce our first speaker. He doesn't really need any introduction, but I think we have a short video coming up. His name is Carl Benjamin. He's sitting right here on my right. And we have a video coming up. Let's first watch this, and then Carl will come and speak on the subject of free speech and the dirty, dirty smear merchants. Well, we might have it in a moment. We might hear it as well. We're not defeated by the establishment, but we are defeated by technology. Go ahead, then. Sorry, Carl, we're not going to see you up there, but we're going to see you in the flesh. Is that all right?
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not quite as tall as Alan, so I have to readjust this. When I wrote this speech, there was a hashtag trending on Twitter called "I blocked the Mail and Sun." This was left-wing Remain activists protesting these far-right newspapers by blocking them in order to stop funding hate, so they didn't get advertising revenue from clicking on their links, which I'm sure these people were regular readers of the Mail and Sun, but I could hardly find myself in disagreement with the statement that a great deal of hate is generated by the British press. They are, in fact, experts in hate, and they spend much of their time actively creating hate figures. I watched Tommy Robinson's appearance on LBC in 2015 recently, and I was astounded by the fact that Nick Ferrari spoke to him like he was a human being. He had politeness and charity when he was interpreting what was being said, and he didn't scream names at him. It was honestly like looking at media from another world. And it was only 5 years ago. Since then, the media hysteria surrounding Tommy in particular, but other dissident figures such as Mark Meekin, who is a pariah in Scotland, Paul Joseph Watson, Katie Hopkins, James Goddard, myself, and others, has reached a fever pitch. It's quite staggering. 4 years after his LBC appearance, Tommy's 2 million follower Facebook page was removed under false pretenses because of the hostile narrative that surrounds him. This has been created and intensified through openly defamatory media coverage, which has culminated in the claim that he had posted an exhortation to his followers to behead Muslims. No proof was provided. A Danish Facebook representative admitted on Danish TV that there was no single post in which he had called for his followers to execute Muslims. It was simply the impression given by the narrative around racist Tommy Robinson. This narrative was created by the British press with the express purpose of marginalising the man and preventing him from engaging in public discourse, the public discourse to which we are all entitled. Describing someone as a far-right fascist or a racist in every single article about them, and then pumping out hundreds, if not thousands, of these articles over a number of years is just a cruel thing to do to a person. It creates a stigma that prevents their engagement in wider society. And him being here now is controversial. This was a difficult thing to get him in this room as proof of what I'm saying here. It makes their lives difficult and dangerous because it whips up opposition activists into a frenzy and they will actively assault us. And the media know they're doing this. It is transparent for what it is. It is a ready weapon which they can use to hurt the enemies of their claim to a monopoly on moral truth. They know that they can poison the minds of the public into an irrational, unknowing hatred of an individual simply by producing and repeating a one-sided narrative about that individual in question. If all the information that the public receives about a single person presents no redeeming qualities, why would they think otherwise? And the question that is always asked is, what has Tommy Robinson said that is racist? What is the example that they provide? They always say, well, I can't think of a single thing, but I just know that he's a racist. And that is the consequence of this media narrative. And the press well knows that their allegations of racism are extremely powerful in public life. And they use this weapon with absolute impunity to anathematize individuals who are considered too dangerous to any prevailing narrative on the subject. Naturally, with such heady power, bad actors are attracted who abuse it for their own ends, and this digital reign of terror has claimed more than its fair share of innocent victims. And the extent to which this has reached has become absurd. Alistair Stewart, OBE, the face of ITV News, the longest-serving male newsreader in the history of British television broadcasting, a patron of charities for animals, the disabled and third world children, had to step down after a racism scandal because he had posted a Shakespeare quotation on Twitter. The man at the centre of this controversy, a one Martin Shapland, apparently a sensitive soul who presumably can't watch wildlife documentaries without feeling personally attacked, said that he had regretted the fact that Stewart had stepped down and only wanted an apology for the aforementioned Shakespeare verse. This is possibly the most glaring example of the vulnerability of the political environment to weaponized identity politics. He had previously used the same Shakespeare quote against another Twitter user, this time a white man instead of a black man, which shows to me that his use of the verse is not related to race. It's not a commentary on a person's intrinsic properties. Instead, it was a critique of the person's hubris, which is precisely what the verse was about. That time, of course, had passed without controversy, but the politically correct orthodoxy has at this point stretched to now where we can't even use the term black and ape in the same sentence while talking to a black person, for fear of some spectre of some 18th century plantation owner looming over our shoulders and smiling with approval. It's nonsense. Nothing in the quote made reference to race, but to the human condition and the folly of arrogance, a condition to which black people are as privy, or maybe I should say cursed, as white people, on account of both black and white people actually being apes. I am of the opinion that it is racist in and of itself to say that we can't apply the same term equally to white people and black people. If we wish to overcome racism, we have to be able to treat black people the same as we would treat white people. It just seems elementary to me. I don't even know why we're discussing this, because to do otherwise is to accept that we don't consider them fully human like us. And that is a standard that I am not prepared to accept. When we cannot use the same term to refer to both black and white people, then the identity politicians like David Lammy, Diane Abbott and Sadiq Khan have finally finished their vile work of dividing us into categories to manage and pit against one another. The only person who would read that Shakespeare quote as anything other than advice against hubris is a race grifter. And the manufactured outrage by these faux offended race grifters has to stop. We are not one-dimensional caricatures that the media makes of us. We are fully fleshed out, three-dimensional human beings. We have rights, and we will pursue the lines of inquiry we think most fit, because we are free to do so. And if we are not free to do so, then people will see the tyranny of political correctness on full display through our example. This is why I support the Hartsburg movement and why I've joined Toby Young's Free Speech Union, and I suggest that you do the same. Thank you.
Carl first came to my notice at a press conference last May, before last May, before the MEP elections. I sat there, and before Carl was ranged all the full forces of the media, and he turned on them and he said, "You dirty, dirty smear merchants." That's my man, that's my man. Then after he made his very valid comment, in my view, although it's not to everybody's taste, that he wouldn't actually rape Jess Phillips, he went on to the Victoria Derbyshire show, and I watched him on that, and I thought, that's my man. Well, stood his ground. Concede nothing, give away nothing, stand your ground. That's what he did. It's very good. So I would recommend, if you want some highly intelligent commentary on what's going on, if you aren't already a follower of his on YouTube, look for Sargon of Akkad. I don't want to spell it for you, okay? It's called Sargon of Akkad, and that's the guy to follow. That's Carl, so do follow him on YouTube and you'll get some really good commentary. Okay, now I said we're primarily about free speech. That's what we are, free speech movement. And we decided that we were going to give a Hearts of Oak Free Speech Award for 2020. Okay, we're going to get our own Free Speech Award. This is the inaugural one, okay? We're going to give it every year to somebody who's courageously battled for free speech. And I'm going to ask my colleague Jeff Wyatt to come up. He's going to come up here and he's going to tell you who we're going to announce it to, and he's going to tell you why, and he's going to hand over the award to her. There's a clue. To her. Okay, Jeff, come on up.
Well, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to be here in front of you today. It's a great honour to be able to be here to hand out the inaugural Free Speech Award from the Hearts of Oak movement. Great pleasure to be here. Lovely to see so many of you here. The very fact that lots of the supporters of Hearts of Oak have had to be careful about actually publicising this event speaks volumes about where our country has become. We had to be careful because of the opposition making threats against this very meeting taking place. And I think that absolutely shows where this country is at. We live in sinister times. To think that 75 years ago, my grandfather, amongst hundreds of thousands of other men, fought on the beaches of Normandy, fought for the freedoms that we've enjoyed post-war in this country. Freedoms that we've come to expect. But here we are in 2020, where we have to stand here in the country to fight for those freedoms. Freedoms of speech, freedoms of expression, and freedoms of assembly, frankly, to meet like we are today. What has our country become? We have Tommy here today. Great pleasure to see Tommy at the heart of the Hearts of Oak movement. Now, getting on for a couple of years ago, Tommy stood outside the Leeds Crown Court and did what he does best, which was report on facts, reports on the Muslim child rape gangs. He was reporting facts that were in the public domain. And for his trouble, he was arrested. For his trouble, he was thrown in jail. 3 senior court appeal judges overturned that jailing of Tommy and labelled the arrest and jailing of Tommy as unjust and unfair. But Tommy had the misfortune of running into MP for Torridge and West Devon, Geoffrey Cox QC, who, as Attorney General of the government at the time, literally changed the law 12 months after fact, specifically to charge Tommy on a trumped-up charge of contempt of court. Tommy had a trial at the Old Bailey. Tommy was not given the right to be tried by a jury, which I've always expected free men of this country to have that option. But no, not Tommy Robinson. The day before the trial at the Old Bailey, I decided to spend a day of my life outside the Palace of Westminster. You know, the Doyen of Freedom, the mother of all parliaments. And I took along a little placard. Now, I spent the day with that placard on a long stick, creating havoc. Now, at lunchtime, me and my friends decided to have a bit of lunch on College Green. It was a lovely, beautiful July sunny day. And 4 Metropolitan Police officers came up to me and said, "You've got to move on, son." What? I've broken no law. I stood my ground. There was no way I was going to leave. It transpired that the officials at the Palace of Westminster, you know, the Doyen of Freedom, the mother of all parliaments, had phoned the local Metropolitan Police Station and said, "Move that bloke on with a Tommy Robinson political prisoner placard." Now, how outrageous is that? I was going nowhere. I carried on the day supporting my friend Tommy. Carl Benjamin, on the stage as well, another well-known social media political commentator. To make a point about the barbarity of rape, he jokes about not wanting to rape Jess Phillips, MP, Labour MP. For his trouble, he was lambasted, harangued and deplatformed. What sort of country have we become now, ladies and gentlemen? We have a situation just recently where 53-year-old Lincolnshire businessman Harry Miller had his local police constabulary ring him up to check his thinking. About some jocular tweets that he made about transgenderism. How outrageous is that? Now, I want to live in a country where a man can stand up in front of people and say something as innocuous as, if you were born with male protruding genitalia, you are a man. If you were born with female inward-facing genitalia, you're a woman. Now, at what point in our country did it become controversial to say that? Unbelievable. Now, Harry Miller, fortunately, is a successful businessman and he had the means to sue the Humberside Police Constabulary. And I'm pleased to say, as many in this room will know, that he had a degree of success a few weeks ago, at great expense. Effectively, that man's life and his family life has been put on hold, and I'm pleased to say that his good name has returned. We have a well-known, elected professional politician, ex-professional politician, called Anna Soubry. Now, Anna Soubry does not like being called a traitor. Now, the recipient of the Hearts of Oak Free Speech Award, the inaugural Hearts of Oak Free Speech Award, is a lady that called Anna Soubry a traitor, not once, not twice, but 3 times. On that third occasion, Amy happened to be at the Palace of Westminster, you know, the mother of all parliaments, the doyen of our freedoms. And Amy Dallamura happened to chance upon Anna, on live TV. And the award that I'm about to present, Amy, you all know what that moment is here, a moment captured, a moment that gets the heart of what Hearts of Oak movement is all about. This is the moment that Anna Soubry called for police help. And do you know what? The police dutifully did that. The police arrived and eventually they arrested Amy. And eventually Amy was put in front of Judge Lady Emma Arbuthnot and was convicted on a trumped-up charge of harassment. Now, Amy will be the first to admit she's no spring chicken. And Amy spent 2 weeks in jail for effectively calling a professional politician a traitor. Now, in the Oxford English Dictionary, the definition of traitor is somebody that is disloyal. Now, I can think of no greater disloyalty than a well-known professional elected politician, which she was, because she's not anymore. Thanks to the good people of Broxton, Nottinghamshire. I can think of no greater disloyalty than spending 3.5 years trying to overturn the democratic decision of the people in June 2016, which is what Anna Soubry did, and it's why I call the lady a traitor. It was with great pleasure that I can award Amy the inaugural Hearts of Oak Free Speech Award, one of the bravest ladies I know, and one of the most effective political activists I know. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Amy Dallamura.
Glad I didn't trip up there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you know what I mean? So thank you so much for this, Jeff, everybody. I'm truly honoured to receive such an award. Now, I had planned to do this in the Ricky Gervais Golden Globe style, but then I realised that this isn't about you, it's about me. What a journey. As the saying goes, it's been full of ups and downs. A few too many downs for my liking, literally, thanks mainly to the Met Police and a certain gentleman by the name of Shrek. Little inside joke there. But if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't change a thing. Actually, hang on. Thinking about it, I might change a couple of things, such as having a chunk of brick thrown by an Antifa loser which hit me in the chest at my very first protest in Telford in 2017, which perhaps should have put me off, but it didn't. And maybe I'd change the knockout punch thrown by Shrek, a complete stranger, in Soho on a Friday afternoon in September of 2018. But other than that, oh no wait, maybe I'd change the experiences of my violent arrest and subsequent 2 days I spent in jail when I protested against the Extinction Rebellion protest on the 20th of April last year. Yes, I did say my arrest for protesting against the protest and then being charged with being a part of the protest, which the police knew full well that I wasn't part of. And I guess I changed the highly unpleasant experience of being physically accosted and unceremoniously thrown out of Parliament by the police on the night of the 27th of March last year, a couple of weeks after my Anna Soubry's a traitor episode. Yes, I'll probably change those moments, but other than that, oh no, hang on a minute. Okay, I definitely changed the sinister experience of the unexpected and violent arrest at my home in May of 2018 for having told someone to have a gay day in a Tesco car park. And the consequent court de facto experience as opposed to the court de jure, which led to a bizarre conviction for an apparent homophobic hate crime, even though the prosecutor at the so-called trial was unable to tell me exactly what the negative meaning of the word gay was. Although having said that I changed that particular negative experience, it would mean that if I had changed that, I would then have missed the more than satisfying experience of then going on to challenge the ridiculous and somewhat Orwellian conviction in August of last year, and winning said appeal by referring to 29JA of the Public Order Act 1986, Section 3, Chapter 64, just a little FYI, by the way. So other than some of those unpleasant episodes, I'd say some of the things I would not change would include the interesting debates at Speaker's Corner that I had in 2018, challenging certain aspects of the ideology of Islam, especially with regards to the treatment of women, and also challenging the park police on that particular Easter Sunday of 2018 as to why they refused to enforce the park's rules and regulations concerning religious prayer. I think the popping of the abominable baby Trump blimp on my birthday last summer during President Trump's wonderful state visit is in a strange sort of way a definite up moment in reflecting on my up and down experiences, although I could have done without the 3 stitches. Thanks to my tool of choice having been my Yorkie safety scissors, which bounced off the thick rubber. Having said that, they were definitely worth the pain. My treatment by the police, on the other hand, was another matter. And I definitely wouldn't change the special experiences I enjoyed alongside the Patriotic Twins UK, Dan the Brexit Matman, and other special, truly patriotic and enthusiastic Brexiteers of our tea and crumpet Saturdays on College Green for the Battle of College Green, which was our peaceful, civilised campaign to remove the fake stream media from that location, as I felt that they tainted the magnificence of the vista of the buildings, which houses the mother of all parliaments, with their incessant anti-Brexit globalist propagandist TV streams, whilst using them as a backdrop. Now, my violent ejection from said College Green, due to the misuse of the trespass law, and I use air quotes for law because there are those of you out there who I know understand, as I now do, having had plenty of time in prison over Christmas, to read a very enlightening book called Freedom, is more than just a 7-letter word, Magna Carta 1215, by Veronica of the Chapman family, which made much of what I've experienced and seen many other poor souls experience over the past, I don't know how many years, suddenly all make sense. And I highly recommend the book for anyone out there who, like me, is intrigued to find out how our world is being run, as opposed to how we thought it was being run and how it's meant to be run. The Magna Carta of 1215 and the Bill of Rights 1689 are just two of the foundational land law-based documents by which our forefathers formulated common sense laws designed to protect people with regards to how things should be run and what rights we as individuals have. As with most ideas, the original ones are usually the best. Thinking about my challenging experiences over the past few years, I wish I could say that most, if not all, of the negativity and hostility I faced during those trying times came from the so-called left, and all that that entails, including the media. But I'm afraid to say that much of it, in actual fact, came from those who claimed to be on the same side. I won't name any names, don't worry. But they know who they are. Sadly, a dark period of my life happened after I lost my career as a golf professional in the US LPGA due to several failed back surgeries and subsequent failed hip surgeries. This eventually led to me losing all hope of ever regaining my health and career, and resulted in me trying to end my life. It's a long story, but suffice it to say that the truth is stranger than fiction. And the truth is that I was in fact rescued from the sea on 5 occasions and not 50, as the fake stream media and prosecutor stated. Yes, I was sent to prison because of their lies. The thing is that what's been held against me has been something I had no power over, and that was severe depression brought on by forces which were completely beyond my control. The old adage of walk a mile in my shoes is a very appropriate one in my case. What I don't understand is why people who are meant to be on the same side joined those who are definitely not in judging and condemning me for what they read, instead of seeing the incredibly positive mental recovery I've been through, which has led me to be receiving this amazing special free speech award today. The hardest thing is that no one has yet had the guts to come and tell me to my face why. But is that why my support from those on the same side has been so underwhelming? Honestly, at times I've felt like the female version of Lord Voldemort of Harry Potter fame. Yes, I read every book long before the author went and ruined it all by going all SJW on it. Yet another shattered illusion to add to the many these days. Listen, I could go on and on about the somewhat dramatic experiences I've been through for the battle to defend not only my own civil rights, which continues, as my appeal against the outrageous conviction is due to be heard on the 12th of March, but also for the battle of others who've been mistreated by the police, the CPS, the media, etc., for the protection of the civil rights as well, for the generations that follow us. But I realise that you're all here to hear a few presentations about our ongoing battles to resurrect our rights of free speech from other better-known voices. So to finish, I'd just like to say a couple of quotes I utter at the end of my daily broadcasts, one being, "If you tolerate this, your children will be next," and the other by the late Sir Winston Churchill, and more recently by my real-life hero, President Donald John Trump, which is, "Never give up, never give in, and never, ever, ever surrender. Something I vow that I will never, ever do again. So help me God. Thank you again for this amazing award, and oh yes, hashtag be kind. Thanks for hanging out.
Our next speaker requires no introduction, but just to say that on the 9th of December, the year before last, 2018, we had a large Brexit rally, and I was comparing this right in Whitehall outside 10 Downing Street. And I introduced the next speaker as a national hero. And there was a guy on the BBC down there, and he went absolutely spare. He's tweeting, he said, the bloke up there, I couldn't work out how the bloke up there says Tommy Robinson, a national hero. And then he's sort of he's trying to search through, who was this bloke, this madman up there who said Tommy Robinson, a national hero? Ladies and gentlemen, he found me in the end, and he really had a go at me on Twitter, but I really don't mind, I don't care, because actually I think our next speaker is a national hero. Ladies and gentlemen,
This is getting lower and lower. Some great speeches. Amy, I was so proud that you didn't falter. So, and taken away at Christmas. So I'll just start off by, I was proud of you. I thought it was brilliant. But I'll start off saying don't mess with our kids. Do not mess with our children. It's something that everybody can get behind and must get behind. What a beautiful symbol. Our children, our country, our future. I want to talk about LGBT indoctrination, but more indoctrination in primary schools. That's the issue I want to speak about. With LGBT, I want to focus on the T and see how many people are aware that in September, teachings in primary school will become compulsory. At the minute you can take your children out, you have been able to. Parents have been able to object. Come September, that right will be taken away from you. As a father, as an Englishman, I decide as a parent what's right for my children. That should never be taken away. In a Welsh school, they held a meeting about this forced indoctrination, about the fact that you will no longer be able to decide what's taught to your child. 90% of parents objected to the law that's coming. In Wales, they followed straight through anyway, ignored the 90%. We know that so often. Ignore the majority, ignore what they want. We're going to decide what we're pushing forward with. Now, the wake-up moment for me, and the moment that really shone a light on this for me, is how many people saw the protest of parents in Birmingham, Muslim parents, outside of schools. I'll be honest, I saw it, and I thought, actually it fits with what I talk about. Is this homophobic Muslims following the teachings of Islam? It would have been a very easy point to push or to get behind. And I started watching and listening. I found out that a Muslim child come home from school, primary school. Remember that, primary school, under 11. I believe this little girl may have been 6 years old, come home and told her mum and dad that she can be a boy. Now that was the issue that raised the problem for the Muslim parents. They then started looking at this programme that was being taught to their children. Again, I say, I would have been of the mindset, are these homophobic Muslims? Is this the reason? I looked at the school, I saw that the man who's running this education system within the school is homosexual. So then I investigate to see if there's been any previous complaints at the school by Muslim parents about having a gay man teach their children, which there hadn't. So this, from the parents, wasn't about a homosexual teaching their children. It wasn't really about homophobia, which I was automatically led by the media and pushed by politicians that these were extremist parents and they're bigots. That's what we've seen. That's what I saw. I then looked and listened a lot to what the parents were saying. And I stand here today, not as a political activist. I stand here to talk about this issue, which will surprise people, the issue I'm talking about. I talk about not as a political activist, as a father. I listened to those Muslim parents. I didn't see them as religious activists. I saw them as fathers, concerned parents with what was being taught to their children. The moment that really ingrained it for me was when I saw Ellie Barnes. Ellie Barnes is a government advisor, an award winner, an LGBT activist in Birmingham. This problem comes from Birmingham. It's rolled out from the city of Birmingham, which is why the Muslim parents have been on the front line of this issue in that city. She said previously, and we hear that this is about tolerance. That's what we hear. This is about this teaching of the children. We'll get on to what they're teaching, but we hear it's about tolerance. Ellie Barnes, and I'll quote her, "We must smash the heteronormativity in primary school children." That's someone with an agenda, their own agenda, and they want to push it on our children. Not her children, our children. Okay? Smash the heteronormativity. The normativity of a man being with a woman, which is normal. Okay? And they want to smash it. And this is like when I first woke up to the issues I'm known for talking about. The more I read, the more concerned I come. It's exactly the same with this issue. The more I've started looking and learning and seeing the agenda that's being pushed on primary school children, the more concerned I've come. Let me show you a video, and I could show you hours worth of these videos. Yeah? Let me show you a video of primary school nursery children. Okay, there's no audio. We don't actually need audio for the point we're going to make. You'll see this. This is a man dressed as a woman. This is primary school children. Now, for me, if a man wants to dress as a woman, you do that. Yeah, I have no problem with it. In fact, on our Day for Freedom event, we had a drag artist come out because it's about freedom. Okay? If a man wishes to dress as a woman and walk down the street, I support your freedom to do so. Okay? What I don't support, and what we cannot support as a country, is this to primary school children. Okay? And we'll get on to why. The reason why. 10 years ago, there used to be 2 referrals a week for gender dysphoria. Have I said that right? I have many problems with it. There used to be 2 referrals a week. There's now 50 a week. Okay? The media celebrate any dysphoria within children, which 50% of the children end up having autism. We have the Tavistock Foundation is the one organisation which children are sent to when they have gender dysphoria. They've had 35 resignations in the last 3 years from experts, medical experts, who are standing against what is being forced. Many of the statements people have made when they've resigned is, we don't feel we can talk about this because of the trans lobby, who then attack them. People feel silenced, that they cannot speak about this issue. Now, where have we heard that before? Where have we seen that before? We've seen social services, police leaders, everyone whose job it is to protect children, stand by and allow industrialised rape of a generation of children because they were scared to talk about the issues. They were scared to talk about the issues for the same reason that now medical experts are scared to address these issues. That is because many organisations and groups who are funded attack them, destroy them, deplatform them, slander them. Let me read now. So, medical professionals are being silenced on this issue. That's why I want to talk about it. That's why I believe we have to talk about it. There is a Muslim gentleman in Birmingham who faces prison for taking his child out of school because he stands against this indoctrination of his child. Okay? Remember, this is becoming compulsory. I believe he's in court on the 30th of March. We have to stand with that man. The British public must stand with that parent. It is his right to decide, and not, and again, I'm going to be called transphobic, hateful, bigoted, homophobic. I will weather that storm because I'm standing up as a parent and I'm standing up for what's right. It's morally right, it's righteous. Let me read you now some primary school books, and this is where the confusion is coming into young children. One book, Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Seahorse, a stunning picture book from Eric Carle about Mr. Seahorse and other male mothers. Male mothers. Another book, Jacob's New Dress. But Jacob wants to wear a dress to school. This is confusion of primary school children. Another book, Billy's New Frock. Billy wakes up to find that he has turned into a girl. Another book, I Am Jazz. This confused her family until they took her to a doctor who said that Jazz was transgender and she was born that way. These books, and in fact, I hate to do this, but I will do it. I'll quote the Guardian newspaper. Another book, and my issue on this, is their primary school children, okay? You're talking, some of the children now being referred to these gender dysphoria are 3 years old. Sargon said to me earlier, my son when he was 3, 4, he was a fire engine, okay? You're now sending them for gender dysphoria appointments, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 13%. We've had 10,000 children now. And are we going to ignore it and be silent? We've seen what happened to a generation of our daughters already. This is child abuse. My name is Kit and I'm 12 years old. This is from another book for primary school children. My name is Kit and I'm 12 years old. I live in a house with my mum and dad and our dog Pickle. When I was born, the doctors told my mum and dad that they had a baby girl. And so for the first few years of my life, that's how my parents raised me. This is called being assigned female at birth. I wasn't ever very happy that way. These are the opening lines of a new book called Can I Tell You About Gender Diversity, which is being introduced into primary schools. You wonder why? You are confusing our children. We are sitting on a trans time bomb of confused young children growing up. And when we talk about, I've spoken about the way that people don't feel free to speak about this. I've watched as the Muslim community, the more I've looked into it, they've been silenced in Birmingham. They've been silenced, they've been stigmatised, they've been slandered as extremists. I've seen the local politicians condemn them. They're parents who have fears and worries about what's being taught to their children. The message I'd like to give about this organisation and about activism to the British establishment. Do you know what's so crazy? This is all happening under a Conservative government. Not under Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, under a Conservative government. The silencing and the fear aspect, we want to become an umbrella for people across the country. The 90% of Welsh citizens who oppose this, it was forced anyway. We want to give a message to the British establishment that if you think this is going under the carpet and quietly passing through for compulsory teaching in children's education by September, if you think you've seen problems outside schools in Birmingham, you haven't actually seen anything yet. Because, and I'll put the olive branch out to the parents in Birmingham, I think that we have to, the British public have to support them. The main problem here is that many parents will not even be aware that drag artists are being brought in to speak to children at school, to read nursery rhyme books, that these books are becoming part of curriculum teachings. The increase going up of over 2,000% each year of gender dysphoria. So, in that, as a father, as a guardian to my children, I will not allow a nanny state to remove my parental rights. And I want to make sure that people join. If you wanted a movement to join, I urge you to join it. I urge real LGBT activists. We've come a long way in protecting gay people's rights. I'd be the first person to speak up for gay people's rights. These videos, this teaching is nothing about gay people's rights. This is about an enforced indoctrination into primary school children. I implore you to join this fight. I implore you to join this movement. The nanny state makes for a terrible educator and an even worse parent. I'd like to thank you all, and again, I'd say we've had some great speakers. I'm proud to be part of a movement that's going to stand up for the citizens who feel silenced. The only way to do it is to spread the word, to join, and to protect a generation of children from what can only be described as cultural Marxism.
You know, and I know that every parent, almost every parent and grandparent up and down the country will agree with those sentiments, but they don't say it. It takes somebody with the courage and the guts and the experience of Tommy Robinson to take the lead and to stand up, and I applaud him for doing so. Let's, if you get behind this movement, get behind it, do so, and the movement will grow up and down the country. People are waiting for a lead to stand up against the establishment and against this teaching that's going into our prepubescent young children in primary schools. That's the key. We're not against gays or against that, but it's these children in primary schools that are being taught this dangerous stuff. So anyway, many thanks to you, Tommy. It's really good. Next speaker is known to many of you, Catherine Blakelock. She was the founder of the Brexit Party, and also she was just give a big hand for that. She has the vision to see what's needed. She also was a spokesman, an economic spokesman for UKIP as well. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you to give a big hand to Catherine Blakelock, who's going to speak about immigration.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 2 decades, hundreds of thousands of people have entered this country every year. Often we have no idea who these people are. We've never been given a vote on the issue of mass migration, and still none of the mainstream political parties are remotely interested in talking about it. The population of Britain has increased by 10 to 15 million in the last 2 decades. Anyone who voices their anxiety about this is likely to lose their job, forfeit their good name, or even be prosecuted. Anyone who dares to comment that Bradford looks like Islamabad, Southall looks like India, or Chinatown looks like China is called a racist. In other words, a very bad person. It's the left that calls everyone racist while discriminating against the native population and the working class. What, if not skin colour, is a black, Asian, minority ethnic programme supposed to be based on? It is pure racial discrimination. Even commercial advertising has become a form of engineering. Advertisers are pressured to show the typical British family of mixed race. In reality, just 3.45% of children born in Britain are from such families, as are my own children. So why is this happening? There are many reasons for this. Votes, money, Profits, or the Marxist destruction of the nation state? Tony Blair said he wanted to rub the right's noses in diversity, and how he has succeeded. In places like Birmingham, the minority has become the majority. As we know from last week's question time, we're not allowed to say we're full up. We're not allowed to say health tourism is a big problem. We're not allowed to say we want our country back, and we're certainly not allowed to say that certain groups commit crime at a higher rate than others. We see fraud, acid attacks, rape and murder, but we're not allowed to comment from where the perpetrators come. Every single statistic on immigration attacks abuse or is viciously disputed. If we say house prices are massively higher because we've had 10 million new people who need a home, we are told we're being silly, that you're talking rubbish. Schools and hospitals full, council house lists without end, roads and trains chocked, public services failing, social security and housing benefits rocket ever upwards. But of course, it's nothing to do with the number of people. If we say migration lowers wage rates, we are shouted down. We are told by the left that it's simply not true. But we all know that if you have 3 people who want to buy a house and they compete against each other, the price goes up. And if you have 80 people who want a job, the pay goes down. So as a result, we've had to force income levels up at the bottom by minimum wage controls, tax credits, in-work benefits, billions of pounds of which leave our shore every year through little money laundering operations in shops in Harrow and Blackburn. And let's talk about refugees. Only 6% of illegals who set foot on our soil are sent back. This is an open-door invitation. As we saw last week with the Jamaican deportation flight, and they were not British nationals, if you were not given a mobile phone chip by the state, even if you had murdered a child, judges tried to stop you from being deported because your rights might have been infringed. Refugees have just been given the right to vote in Scotland. So who are these refugees? The politically persecuted? The destitute? The sick? Well, not exactly. Here is a typical example of an economic migrant. Hassan, 28, is earning a reasonable living in a paint shop in Ouagadougou. He's managed to save $5,000. His family decide that Hassan should try to come to England. He's been told that if you just set one foot in English soil, their judges, who fear to be called racist, will not deport you, and you'll be given lots of free stuff. Once Hassan has a British passport, his family tells him that he must immediately bring over a wife and start a family. Each child brings a British passport and the benefits that come with it. Entire villages have ended up in Britain by this type of chain migration. The government and the righteous left would rather the public did not know about Hassan or his fellow migrants from all over the world, the majority of whom fit this description. There are genuine refugees from war, displacement, famine, but as we know from Syria and the Christian Barnabas Trust, few actually make it here. Only those with money get here. Both migrants and the majority of refugees are here for one reason: economic benefit. Boris Johnson thinks he can solve this problem by introducing a points system based on a job offer, the ability to speak English, a minimum salary and sufficient funds for the migrant to keep himself without claiming social security. This idea is fatally flawed because of the way many migrants regard this country. They regard it as a honeypot. Job offers, bank accounts, job offers, bank accounts, documents, and the ability to speak English are all subject to fraud. Just recently we had a case in the Home Office where 59,000 students we knew that they had fraud with their language tests. There is a huge industry ready to service them. How easy is it for one of the 6 million small businesses in Britain to write a bogus job offer letter? How will the papers produced by Asian document factories be checked? If a potential immigrant needs adequate funds to obtain the necessary points, he gets a friend to transfer the money into a bank account for a few weeks. We already know that there is rampant fraud in the system. Many of these applicants will, after a period of 5 years, be given a British passport and become full British citizens with exactly the same rights as those whose families have lived here for millennia. This entire problem is about citizenship. If we had not given out passports like confetti decades ago, the problems that we are now facing in Bradford and Luton would not now exist. Why? Because indefinite leave to remain, or the award of a British passport, however corruptly obtained, means that you are unchuckable outable. We cannot continue to offer free housing, healthcare, social security, transport, food and water, education and old age care to the entire world. If we do so in a decade, we will face the total economic collapse of our society. Boris should instead consider the following. Stop issuing passports to people born abroad. Stop social security payments to anyone new entering this country. Remove people with dual nationality if they commit criminal offences. Deport anyone who tries to enter this country illegally using false papers or making unfounded claims of persecution. Replace the full British passport for immigrants, including for spouses, with a 3-year renewable visa. This is what happens in most Asian countries, such as Vietnam, who understand sovereignty. Even if the mainstream media and the BBC will not report this event today, we must keep on talking about these issues. We will not be shut up. To stop uncontrolled mass immigration of all kinds is a moral duty, not just towards our own citizens, but to the migrants themselves. Thousands of people, including children, have died in the Mediterranean because the left have urged them to come and do everything possible to make it seem as though it is easy. It is perhaps the most wicked and irresponsible thing done in our history. Mass immigration, even under a point system, causes tremendous cultural and social dislocation for both the migrants themselves and the native population. It also causes hardship and poverty for the sending nations by depriving them of their nurses, doctors, and skilled labour. The right has a duty to reverse this wrong. History, it is said, does not repeat itself, but the music is the same. In The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Gibbon described the following. The trembling Senate were unable to guard against the secret conspiracy of their slaves and domestics, who either from birth or interest were attached to the cause of the enemy. At the hour of midnight, the Salarian Gate was silently opened and the inhabitants were wakened by the tremendous sound of the Gothic trumpet. 1163 years after the foundation of Rome, the imperial city, which had subdued and civilized so considerable a part of mankind, was delivered to the licentious fury of the tribes of Germany and Scythia. Let us replace trembling Senate with our cowardly, appeasing political class, biased media, blind civil service, and those who would prefer to virtue signal or make money rather than address the monumental issues facing this country. We must, ladies and gentlemen, stand up for what is right. Thank you.
I warned my friends and also my critics, our critics here, that we're going to provide some excellent speakers today. And am I right or wrong? I'm right. Thank you very much indeed. But we haven't finished yet. We haven't finished yet. Indeed, I noticed the time's getting on. We told people we'd be finishing at 1 o'clock. It looks like we won't be. If you need to go, please leave quietly down the side. But I think we should be finished hopefully by about 1:15. We have 2 more speakers, and then we have a question and answer session. Then we'll be over. The next speaker, I'm very pleased and proud to introduce him. You don't have to be religious to realise, and I'm sure many people here would agree, that our country in some ways is built on Christian values and traditions and heritage. And you don't have to be a churchgoer to acknowledge that. And also many people will realise, and there's some people who write about it quite clearly, Douglas Murray has talked about this in his books, that actually the decline of these Christian values and traditions, this Christian culture, is a contributor to the mess and malaise that our nation has found itself in. I personally will want us to be campaigning, frankly. Let me just read something. In the middle of the referendum debate, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is there to promote the cause of Christ in our nation, came out with this statement. This is in the middle of the referendum debate. He said, this is from the pulpit, this is from the top man of the church. And he said that the greatest dream realised for human beings since the fall of the Western Roman Empire, that is in 467 AD, 1500 years ago, is the EU. That was said by the Archbishop of Canterbury. I can give you all sorts of reasons why the Church of England has lost its being, it's lost its direction, but that statement by Archbishop Justin Welby just about summed it up. Right in the middle of this hugely controversial debate, he comes out with that. So I personally, and I want our movement to be campaigning, firstly they had the bishops removed from the House of Lords. It's time they were off and out and gone. And also, I think we ought to be investigating whether to disestablish the Church of England. The Church of England, of course, a bit like the BBC, is funded the same, therefore it's funded by the government, it's supported by the state, and so on. And it actually has a very much a similar mindset. You can't tell the difference between the BBC and the Church of England, at least at its senior levels, okay? So I think it's a good case. But just as we make the BBC into a subscription model, we should disestablish the Church of England. That's my own personal views, and we'll look at that. However, perhaps a couple of years ago, I attended and spoke at a rally outside Parliament organised by the veterans, Richard Inman, who sends his apologies. He is unable to be here today, but he sends his best wishes. But he and the veterans organised this rally, and Richard invited Pastor Wale Babatunde to speak there. I thought, this is going to be interesting to see that. And Pastor Wale Babatunde is a great... he loves this country, he's got a British passport and all the rest of it, and he's very saddened as he's to see what's happened to this, what he thought was a great country. Some years ago, he wrote a book called Great Britain Has Fallen. And as he says, as Britain has moved away from its Christian roots, so it has got itself into this muddle. So I thought, Whatever you think about religion, we're not here to evangelise, not a religion, we're a secular body, but I thought you'd like to hear from Pastor Wally, so I've asked him to come and speak to us for a few minutes today. Pastor Wally, please come. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you, Carl and Jeff, Tommy Robinson, and thank you, Catherine. I want to appreciate every one of us for coming to this wonderful occasion. I've been so touched by our passion for this great nation. My name is Wale Babatule. I was born in the nation of Nigeria, but I'm a British by adoption. I came to this island about almost 30 years ago, and before I came to this island, I had read a lot about our history, about our politics, about great revivals, our economy, great men and women that has been raised from this island and have changed the history of the world. So when I was coming here, I was looking forward to a Christian country. And I don't know whether you've thought about it, do you know our nation is the only nation in the world that has the name Great before it? Great Britain. And I don't know whether anybody has realized that the reason why we have great before our name is because we were once associated with God. You know, I'll tell you a few things about this nation. Our fathers in this land embraced the Christian message, and all our foundation in this nation, from my research, is that our nation was built on Christian principles and values. And I have argued several times in and out of parliament that this has been the major reason that has brought us fame, peace, prosperity, and we've become the envy of the nations of the world. I challenge anyone today in this place or outside to look at every sphere of our society, and you will not come to a different conclusion that in the last 1,500 years, Christianity has been the most significant influence on our government, on our politics, on judiciary, on sports, on our culture, on media, on our social services, and even our family. Let me remind us today that Great Britain is a Christian nation by law. We are a Protestant nation. Do you know that every monarch, when they assume office, they become the defender of the faith? We're a Christian, Protestant Christian nation. Are we aware that at the coronation of our monarch, the Bible is presented to the king or to the queen with a stern charge to rule according to the laws of God. At the coronation of our queen, the Archbishop of Canterbury asked the incoming monarch, will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God, the true profession of the gospel, and the Protestant Reformed religion established by law? And will you preserve unto the bishops and the clergy of this realm and to the churches committed to their charge all such rights and privileges as by law do or shall appertain unto them or any of them? And the king or the queen will respond, all these I promise to do, laying hands on the Bible. Did you know that the framework of our legal system has its inspiration from the Bible? Most of our laws today finds their inspiration from the Word of God, the Bible. Did you know that our social security system that caters caters for the jobless, the elderly, the disabled, the children, the foreigners, including those who come to this island to come and destroy us and destroy our ways of life. Do you know that inspiration is taken from the Bible? Did you know that our parliament does not sit in a semicircle but opposing each other, because that was taken from the choir stalls? Did you know that whenever our Prime Minister speaks, there's a box in front of him? Do you know there is a Bible in that box? It tells us that we expected God from the beginning to speak to us. Is anyone aware that the BBC, our premier broadcasting house, was dedicated to Christ in the year 1933 with a Bible quotation taken from the book of Philippians 4:8-9? Did you know that most of our famous educational institutions like Oxford was never started as universities but as Bible colleges, and Cambridge, Eton College that has produced almost about 18 prime ministers, they all have Christian roots. Did you know that the game of football that unites all kinds of people, men and women, boys and girls, all manner of people, do you know we give them to the world? And did you know that 33% of the Premiership clubs were either started by Christians or they were started in the church? Aston Villa was one of them. Aston Villa was our first football club. Do you know that Aston Villa, Everton, Manchester City, Southampton Saints, Fulham, Barnsley, Liverpool, Everton, and I can go on, were started by Christians. However, what is the situation today? Our nation is so much in decline. We've all said it today. Everyone here, we've said it. Our nation is in decline. Great is no longer an apt word to use for our nation. You know why? Because we have turned our back against God. This nation acknowledged God in our national life several times. We acknowledged God during Dunkirk. We have tried over the decades to keep God out of our national life. That's why things are no longer the same today. You know, we've allowed foreigners to take over. I hear the passion. Let me tell you something. I'm a black man, I'm a Nigerian. And I feel so disgusted that people from outside will come into somebody else's nation and you want to take over. You want to change their culture. And yet the indigents don't have the right to speak their mind. It's a shame. Unfortunately, even the established church and so many people that you think will speak the truth, we are in complete disappointment to God, because we will rather choose to be politically correct than being biblically correct. Let me say this to us in closing. It is time we speak up. It is time we stand up. We cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand. We've had it again and again here today. If our children will one day find out that we have the opportunity to speak up, but we fail to speak up, they will not forgive us. We don't have another country. This is a great country. I am proud to be a British citizen. And let me say this to us. It is important that we stand and speak on behalf of our children. May God bless you. Thank you very much.
Last speaker before we turn to question and answers is my colleague Peter. I just want to give Peter a big hand. He's the one who really responsible for drawing this up.
I'll just talk for a few minutes, and then and then we'll pass over for questions. We did have finished by 1. We're not in a massive rush. We do have a place until 2, so I'll speak for a few minutes on the connecting with you and how you can follow what's happening, and then we'll go into questions probably until 1:30, and then you've got a good half an hour to finish. So I'm going to try something which works on my phone, and it should work here. Wonderful. So the website works. It went live about half an hour ago. So in good time. On that, you can find out what we're doing. We have lots of ideas what we want to do over the next few months. You can keep in touch. Let's see if all these work. You can fill in your details and we will keep you informed of what's happening. We've got all different, we've got Twitter's up there, we've got Facebook, Instagram, we'll add a lot of others on. We've got information of our key contributors, links to their videos, their websites, a lot, and we're going to add to that. There are a number of others going to come on board as the months go by. We've got a lot of, we're here in London, that's not where we'd like to be, we'd like to get out, and we're looking at the end of March, and then into April to have 2 gatherings in April, 2 in May. We'll see how that develops. We want to get out and have venues like this across the country to engage people face to face. I think I've realised that there are a lot of commentators about what is happening in our society, and I would like this to be a organisation that brings change and doesn't just commentate. It's quite easy to see the issues that we have, and you can think, well, where do I go? There are a smaller and smaller number of countries that actually we could run away to, but there comes a point where you say, this is our country, we're going to stay, we're going to fight, and we're going to do what's right for our nation and our country. So that's behind Hearts of Oak. So if you do, on the website, heartsofoak.org, sign up, put your details down, we'll keep informed of what's happening. We will have regular videos up there. Ideally, we'd love to have each evening short videos with different contributors. We're not there yet, we'll build up to that. If you want to be involved again through the website, you can contact Alan, myself, or others and say you'd like to be involved in that, you've got an area you want to talk about. Let's get as many people involved in that as possible. So we have not just videos educating people, we also have days where we educate but also we train. We need to train people up to be citizen journalists. We need to tell people what happens in their primary school when this teaching comes in. I've got 2 kids, this affects me as well. So as a parent, what do you do? How do you approach the school? How do you raise your concerns? We want to have all these things done so we can give people practical ways of how they can change society and push back what's happening. So everything will be through the website. I'm glad it's working. That was a bit of stress to see that up. So everything's there. Sign up, pass it on to others if you like what you've heard, if you like this idea about big hitters, an alliance of individuals coming together and doing their separate things, but together we can be stronger and we can really hit well above our weight. Then sign up and be part of that. I will pass you over to Alan, and I said we'll probably have questions until 1:30, 20 minutes or so. I'll take one of the mics.
Okay, lovely. Can we please have microphones? Have microphones available, please? Is that all right for people? Okay. Not looking at the questions, are you, Tommy? Okay, good. Well, I guess I'll be back. Are there any questions? Questions to any of the speakers? Questions to Peter or myself about Hearts of Oak? Anything you like. You may have to, if you've got a question for Tom, you'll have to wait until he's finish his business. Okay. There's a question over there. Yes. Can we pass the microphone there?
My name's David Skinner. What hasn't been mentioned this morning is freedom of thought. Freedom of speech is nothing. And Peter Tatchell, we know the lovely Peter Tatchell. If you Google Peter Tatchell, Wolverhampton University, you'll see he gives this at the end of a long speech where he's going to test children from the time that they start school right to the very end. They will sit a public examination they'll be tested on their equality and diversity, and the results will go with them for the rest of their career. And Tim Dieck from Christian Concern really spoke passionately about this whole issue of interrogating what's in our mind, let alone what we say. So, just add that.
Carl, do you want to have a go at that one? Is that...
I'm not actually sure what the question is, really. I think that freedom of thought is implicit in the idea of freedom of speech, obviously. The thoughts no one can know in your own head until you speak them out loud, so I think that you can't really separate the concepts, but I agree with you that we should all have freedom of thought. But what exactly were you asking, sorry?
What am I asking?
Yeah.
Are you really taking on board that it's beyond freedom of speech?
Right. It's beyond freedom of speech, it's freedom of thought, and that our being aware that we will be interrogated. People demand to know what we think.
Yes.
You will not be able to remain silent.
Yes, I don't think there's any delineation between the two concepts, really. I think they're implicit in one another. If you have the freedom to think as you want, you should be able to have the freedom to speak as you choose. And I don't see why we wouldn't be in full support of that.
Okay, there's a question. Just have the lady down the corner here.
Sorry, can I just say one thing on that? There's a lot of self-censorship. I think that's also, it's not just freedom of speech, it's the fact that we won't say things all the time. Self-censorship, and everybody's doing it every minute of the day.
That's very good.
Okay, so my question is very simple. In 2018, we had a great year. All the marches, the rallies, the activism that really got the buzz going in a lot of people. Are we going to have lots more of that, please?
First thing I said this morning is we need to march on the Home Office demanding the release of the report into the grooming gangs that they're now hiding, and letting everyone know they're hiding. So very soon there'll be a date set in the coming future with speakers, because this again is an issue that's being hidden. They managed to hide it for 40 years. It's out now. This is their next way of keeping the public unaware or not giving them all the information, which again is our right. If these gangs are operating in a certain way because of a certain reason, then tell the public. Let us know truly what we face in this country, what's driving these gangs. In my view, they're hiding it because it's going to completely prove everything we've all been fighting for.
Barricades, okay. Let's have one over this side now. We're going to go right up the back, please. Right up by the pillar, please. We'll try and get round to you all.
Thank you. I prefer not to be filmed, please. But you guys, thank you very much. You've spoken a bit about your issues and that you are not a political think tank, not a party. You've spoken about your values. But do you have any goals, any specific sort of clarified goals that you want to achieve?
Freedom of speech.
Yeah. Yes, we do as an organisation. We will be successful if we have generated a movement up and down the country of people who want to stand with us on these issues which we're not allowed to talk about, freedom of speech and so on. We think we will do so. Some of the issues we've touched on today, the country needs people who are willing to stand up and speak about them. And we think by doing so, it will go right away across the grassroots. However, we're well aware that you never impact anything finally in the government, as UKIP has shown, unless you can actually start having that impact in the ballot box. So we will be looking, not Heart Smoke. Heart Smoke is a cultural educational movement, or however you want to do it as a movement. But in due course, the energy and the momentum and all that gets going will need to be vested in the ballot box in order to shape the establishment. and show that we can deliver, okay? So we aren't sure exactly the format that will be, but that will be the long-term aim. I'm going to tell you one of my, I keep telling him, he doesn't believe me, one of my own personal preferences, one of my personal ambitions, which I'm very pleased to go to my grave with, is when I see Tommy Robinson elected as MP for Rotherham. That's my...
Just to jump in, I think that the first tangible goal that Hearts of Oak should have, though, is first thing we actually want to say, look, this is an achievement under our belt. I actually really think that the release of the Grooming Gang report should be the first major thing. Because for the government to claim that that is not in the public interest is absurd and cowardly.
I was just going to talk a little bit about the political environment. The political environment has changed quite considerably and is very volatile at the moment. I mean, Nigel did make regime change. He got rid of May, and we did achieve Brexit, and we've got Boris, which is a sort of improvement. I personally think that the political position is now different. Earlier, we were basically fighting in the south to a large extent. Now, I think that Boris is catering for the Conservative South, and the fight has to be taken to the north. I know that people voted for Richard Tice in Hartlepool, and they voted for some of the Conservatives in the northern cities, but they're not going to keep on doing that. They did it because the worst was alternative. The fight now is with a collapsing Labour Party that is going to carry on with the same transgender, the same very left-wing cultural Marxist agenda. There is a gap in this market, and Jeff and I have been talking, and that's Jeff Wyatt, who used to be Anne-Marie's deputy, and both of us were involved in UKIP. We have been talking about going to see a lot of the smaller parties, and there's Robin Tilbrook here at the back from English Democrats. There's James Dalton and veteran Democrats in Barnsley. They're doing very well. They've got 7 council seats, and they are hoping to take over the council. There's a number of other small parties around, and unless the right unites and all these groups unite, we will not get anywhere.
Right in the middle there, good. I see all your hands, I'll try and get round to you. Please keep it short, sir, if you would. Got a lot of questions to get through.
Yeah, okay. I think everyone should know about my story. This is going to be very, very brief. It's the culmination of 22 years' work without pay, so just give me a bit of slack. My experience vindicates everything that everybody has said, and the reason why everyone's here today. In 1996, when I worked for Granada TV,
you hold it a bit closer.
Yeah, in 1996, I worked for Granada TV as a reporter. My face didn't fit. I was very popular, but they got rid of me because I wasn't left-wing enough. The last thing that I did for Granada got me shortlisted Best News Reporter of the Year. And for those that want to see it, it's on YouTube. It's called The Forgotten People of Openshaw. Cut into the nub of the story. After I got rid of by Granada, I investigated the Casby Question affair involving the disgraced Neil Hamilton. And the real story is that Hamilton's innocent, he's been stitched up, and The Guardian perverted the official parliamentary inquiry into the affair. The media has bought off the Hamiltons. They won't talk about my work. Neil and Christine are far too concerned about getting their faces on television. But my documentary, which has took me more than 10 years to produce, it took me 2 years just to scan the documents to create the resource from which I could choose to make the documentary. It's 20 years, it's 20 hours long. The first 2 chapters tell the entire story, so there's no need to watch the whole documentary. And I recommend everybody to watch it because it vindicates everything you say. If you want a case study that demonstrates the dishonesty of the BBC and the dishonesty of all broadcasters and the dishonesty of the Conservative press who the left turn to show that the British media is pluralistic, then you need a case study. And my story is the case study that you need to appraise.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Okay, just tell me how to find us.
So can you either ask a question or can you hand the microphone over?
Yeah, okay. Go to you.
This is not actually about you, sir.
Okay,
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your contribution. Thank you. And various people in here will have heard what you said, very much so. I won't name them, but they're listening very carefully to what you said. Okay, I'm going to go right over there. Thank you.
Does the panel agree that what's going on in schools vis-à-vis the LGBT material is in fact a form of political persuasion, using their emotions and playing upon those? If you agree with that, what would you propose to do to stop it?
It absolutely is a form of political persuasion. These are expressly political terms that they are using. They do not merely say homosexual or lesbian or something like this. They have a political acronym, LGBTQ plus whatever else they add on to the end of it. It is only used by a particular kind of left-wing activist mindset. It is not what we would normally call conservative or liberal. It is progressive, and they are following a doctrine called intersectionality. As you were exactly right to point that out, and I think it's an excellent observation. Thank you.
When you say what do we propose to do about it, the only thing I know to do is to shine a torch in the biggest way possible. Unfortunately, I believe that will have to be in shutting down certain schools. I think that the only way the general public will become really aware of what's being taught to children. We saw in Warwickshire Council were teaching children self-stimulation, masturbation at the age of 6. Masturbation at the age of 6. In black and white, on their websites, you could read it. They talk about loving themselves, children loving themselves. So, as I said, the only way I see, which I'm sure members of the British establishment will be keeping an eye on, is we've seen what the parents done in Birmingham. We want to bring it to a whole new level in the coming next 12 months to really shine a torch. And I think, unfortunately, the only way to do that will be with the shutting down of certain schools.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate something I said there. I'm talking from an outside perspective, a Nigerian. I want to say to us British, it's time we stand up. We have been too quiet. And let me say this, our children may never forgive us if we don't rise up now.
Political issue. I mean, you take the issue of migration. If you do polls, 70% of the population, including a lot of ethnic minorities, think that there's too much immigration and that immigration is ruining the country. So it's the same issue with all these issues. There is this massive silent majority out there that believes what we do and they won't speak.
Up there in black who's also filming, I think, at the same time.
Yeah, you're right. Hi there. I just wanted your feedback on a couple of those. A little bit nervous doing this. One, you mentioned earlier on about freedom of thought, and someone mentioned self-censorship up there. Isn't that the success of political correctness? And the second thing I wanted to just ask your opinions on is, isn't free speech the mother of all other free speeches? Surely if free speech is closed down, then every other thing we could ever complain about or try and fight against is closed down also. I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
My thoughts would be, when we talk about self-censorship, you're right, political, we see why. The lady on Question Time this week, they destroyed her life in 7 days. Yeah. There's an organisation. I know many people, because I was one of them. When I started talking out, I wore a mask and used a different name. Yeah? The reason being I was scared, because I knew what was coming. Many people in good jobs with a lot of finance are worried and fearful about speaking out. You've got a panel of people which will get bigger. You've got an organisation that's not going to be scared to speaking out. Let that be your voice. Yeah. Let it be the movement you support and get behind. And people are willing to take the heat for it, mainly because they've thrown everything at us all anyway. There's not much more they can do. So I quite enjoy it now. So yeah. I think that the self-censorship, I completely understand why people were scared to speak out. We saw it this week at Question Time.
I'm only going to be able to take about 3 more questions, I think it'll be quick. I'll have that lady there, please, that gentleman there, and this gentleman down here. I think, can you please make them quick, because we do need to be out of here in due course. Let's have the lady first.
You're trying to differentiate between freedom of thought and freedom of speech. Sorry. And I think most recently this was adequately illustrated by the fact that Harry Miller was told by the police that they needed to check his thinking. Yeah? And my son-in-law told me 2 years ago that they would be after our freedom of thought soon. And I said rubbish, but it's come to pass, hasn't it? And also we're talking about another thing is de-radicalisation and this PREVENT programme. It's a complete farce. Because as it was demonstrated just recently, it doesn't work, and the people who are being targeted and persecuted are innocent conservatives who make a throwaway remark, and we can give you lots of cases of young people who've been made a throwaway remark, perfectly innocent. One of them, I think, actually supporting you, Tommy. He was interrogated for hours by the police, and one of the questions they asked him was, did you vote for Brexit? Okay, and that's the beginning of it. And they drove him in tears. He rented the bathroom in tears, and his mother had to cajole him to come out. She's been intimidated to such an extent that she's now afraid to bring this into the light because she's afraid of what's going to happen to her son. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Rhys Holmes knows somebody else who was interrogated for hours on end because he made a perfectly innocent remark under freedom of speech, and he was interrogated for hours by the thought police.
So I'm really glad you brought that up, and I genuinely find it disturbing that the case of Harry Miller was the police officer saying, we are here to check your thinking. That is, I mean, the only way they can know that is from his expression. This is why there's very little differentiation there. But the very notion, I mean, the term Orwellian is often overused, but the police are simply not well educated enough to understand this subject. It is a highly academic subject. It is very, very complex. It is not a settled subject either. There is a huge amount of contention and debate regarding these topics. The medical procedures are experimental, the drugs they are using are experimental, and yet this is all going ahead anyway. And Harry Miller, for believing that, say, a man is an adult human male, and a woman is an adult human female, found himself in trouble with the law. Something has gone terribly wrong, and, well, that's why we're doing this.
The gentleman down there. Yeah. Can somebody put a hand over the microphone, please?
Yes. Why do you call it Hearts of Oak?
Say it again.
Why do you call it Hearts of Oak?
Why do we call it Hearts of Gold? Hearts of Oak, yes, sure. Thank you very much. Lord, I know the name. Very simple. We are not a political party, so we haven't chosen a political name. We consider ourselves to be more a cultural and educational movement as such, so we took a name. And we thought it represents the heart of Britain. Oak is a tree recognised certainly in England as part of it. Think of Robin Hood or Nelson's Victory, which was made up of 6,000 oak trees and so on. And we wanted a warm one, so it's Hearts of Oak, that's why. We think it'll catch on. Once we put the content in the name, we think it'll catch on. But also, it's not an aggressive name. We didn't want to be aggressive. We may be aggressive against the establishment, but we didn't want the name to be aggressive. Okay. Yes, please. This lady there standing up. That'll be the last one, I'm afraid.
know who I am, but I used to have quite a successful YouTube channel, and I actually spoke at the same event that the Reverend on stage did. My name's Brick Girl, and I actually lost my job because I spoke out. I used to have about 120,000 subscribers on YouTube when I did a video exposing the Barcelona Declaration, and I had a knock at the door by the police, and I lost my job. And the censorship is real, and people don't understand. And everyone comes and they give you the affirmation for speaking out and say, well done. But until everybody starts speaking out, until everybody starts raising their voices up, you can't keep relying on 1, 2, 3 or 4 people to do it. Everybody's got to do it, and until they do, nothing's going to change.
I think that's a good point on which thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Condolences for what you've been through.
Can I just say, most people I think don't know what's going on.
So yes, go on.
They just don't know. No. They have no idea. They watch the BBC every night. They haven't got a clue. Like, I mean, this is not, you're not the only person. We documented 120 people that we found through the newspapers who'd lost their job, and there are hundreds and hundreds of others behind who've lost their jobs. And I don't know, and given that everything is cut off instantly, so you're cut off on Twitter, social media, etc., we then, obviously, we invited all the press, we invited the BBC here, I invited Christopher Hope, the political editor of the Telegraph, who I know personally, that if I was standing for the Brexit Party, would be happy to talk to me. But if I'm here, he's not. The Sun, even Breitbart didn't come, although they will probably do something. But this is the problem, this news blackout, and how you get around that, I just don't know.
We all talk at the pub instead of listening, instead of being frightened to talk at the pub. As I've said, I've converted many people. That I've lost many family and friends that don't want to talk to me now. But I will stand by all of you, especially Tommy, and I will stand and get barred from pubs, and it starts the talk going. And it's for each and every one of us to take a place and talk.
Thank you all very much indeed for coming. I think it's been, I hope you've certainly enjoyed the speakers. Every one of them is courageous and does their stuff. Thank you. Please don't rush away. We've got the hall for another 25 minutes. Do network, do meet people. If you're somebody who'd like to come and join us, please do sign up. If you'd like to come and talk to us because you've got an organisation, perhaps that's moving in the same direction as us, and you'd like to become part of this loose alliance, we won't tell you what to do, we'll just work together, we'll cooperate together and build a large, broad alliance to fight these particular battles. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just add three quick thanks. One for the venue. We arranged this, we organised this, I told them what the topics were. I did not put all the speakers down, and they've had a lot of aggro. So first of all, thank you to the venue for keeping us here. When you came in, you will have seen a lot of people in blue tops who have been stewarding, who've given their time to check people as they come in. So could you please give a round of applause for the stewarding team? You may not know, you may be sitting beside someone who's ready to accost you if you did something wrong. We have people here who've given their time, who are here plain clothes, sitting here ready in case anything kicks off. So please put a round of applause for